Happy Father's Day! Let's talk about the Canucks versus the Wild playoff series preview. Now, before we get started, I just want to ask you to please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, which will alert you when my next video comes out, which will be about the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New York Rangers. Now, this is a 6th video in an 8-part series that I'm doing about all the play-in matchups, and I'll put up a link up top over the next few minutes so you can click on at your leisure, but of course, you can just as easily find them in my playlist. Now, remember, I won't be picking a winner out of either of these teams. We'll just talk about who might have the edge and analyzing some of the stats. I'll be picking my favorites probably in a few weeks' time closer to the playoff start, which sounds like it's going to be end of July, early August. Now, these teams faced each other 3 times this season, and Minnesota won 2 of those 3 of those games. One of them happened to be in the shootout. Now, Vancouver finished 4th in the Pacific with 78 points, seeded 7th in this play-in. Minnesota finished 6th in the Central, a very tough division with 77 points, and were seeded 10th. Now, let's start with some team stats, starting with the special teams and the power play. Vancouver's was lethal and was 4th in the league. Minnesota's was 11th. Surprisingly so, when I saw that stat, kind of shocked me. Now, penalty kill, Vancouver is 16th, Minnesota's 25th. That actually also surprised me a bit, seeing as how Minnesota has such a great defensive core and the slow, kind of boring, close-knit games that they play. But anywho, Vancouver definitely takes more penalties than Minnesota does. So, that's a bad thing for their power play, but they're also a lot better than Minnesota at drawing penalties. So there's that. Now, goals for, Vancouver's in 10th, Minnesota's in 14th. Goals against, the Canucks are 19th, and the Wild are 22nd. Now, when it comes to face-off win percentage, which can be very important, especially on special teams, Vancouver's 2nd in that category, and Minnesota's 27th. They stink. Yeah. When it comes to 20-plus goal scores, Vancouver has 5 of them. Yeah. Mind you, there's a bit of an asterisk there because those goals also include Toffoli's goals that he scored when he was with LA before he was traded, so there's that. But they also have one 18-goal scorer as well. On the Wild side of things, they've got 2 20-plus goal scorers, and one of them has 19. When it comes to 50-plus point players, Vancouver has 4. Minnesota has 1. That hurts. Now, a few notes here, key notes for each team. Starting with Vancouver, Bo Horvat, English, was tied for 6th in power play goals in the league with 12. And Quinn Hughes and JT Miller are tied for 9th in the league with power play points with 25. And lastly here, Virtanen, who's having a career year, is tied for 5th in the league with game-winning goals with 6. Now, on the Wild side of things, interesting stat here, Minnesota's actually last in the league when it comes to hits per game. That's especially surprisingly seeing their style of play. Parise, he's tied for 6th in power play goals in the league with 12. One of the reasons why Lou Lamoriello probably wants him for the Islanders. And then Suter is 9th in the league when it comes to average ice time. No surprise there. He's their shutdown man. Now, let's talk about some positional statistics here, starting with the goaltenders and beginning with Jacob Markstrom of the Vancouver Canucks, who got injured, and when he did, Vancouver's play kind of went downhill after he left. Now, he's 30 years old. He'd be 31 in January, 6'6", 206 pounds, and in 43 games had a .918 save percentage, a career year for the guy. But when it comes to the playoffs, he's got no experience. There's nothing for us to draw from here. And of course, Thatcher Demko, the kid who's backing him up, he's 24 years old, be 25 in December, 6'4", 192 pounds. In 27 games, had a .905 save percentage. Not even league average. you see the eye test tells you that this goalie can be good, but he just lets in a softie every game. And when Markstrom went down and he popped in, yeah, their record showed it, right? Now, on the Minnesota side of things for goaltenders, starting with Devin Dubnyk, he's 6'6", 224 pounds. He's 34 years old, just had a birthday in May, and in 30 games had an .890 save percentage. I want to say that's one of the worst of his career, probably since he started in his first year with the Edmonton Oilers in 2009. Now, last year he was a .913, by the way, and the year before that a .918, year before that .923. He's declining. But he does have some playoffs experience, and in only 26 games, which is in 4 separate playoff appearances, he's got an average of .904. Not horrible, and that's in 10 seasons in the league. His last appearance was in 2018, where he had a .908 save percentage in 5 games. The year before that in the playoffs, he was a .925. So there's some hope there. Now his backup, Alex Statlock, the 32-year-old will be 33 in July, 6 foot 200 pounds. Just signed a sweetheart of a deal with Minnesota over the next 2 years. Now, on 38 games, more than Dubnyk there, had a .910 save percentage, better than the league average, compared to his .899 last year. And he actually has a tiny bit of playoff experience as well. Only 4 games. In 4 games in 2 different appearances. Couldn't read my writing there for a second. Now, and he's got a .933 save percentage as an average. I know it's only 4 games, but still, and that's over 6 different seasons. It's kind of more like 8, but in his first 2 seasons in the NHL, he only played like 3 games, so I kind of sort of didn't include them. Let's talk about defense, starting with the goals and the comparisons between the 2 teams. Minnesota actually has almost 20 more goals than Vancouver in this category. Now, Hughes has 8, leads the way for Vancouver, and then for Minnesota, it's Spurgeon with 12. He's on the first power play and the first and second penalty kill unit with Suter, by the way. When it comes to overall points from the defense, Minnesota leads the way here at 2, just by a little bit, by 11 points. 11-point difference. Hughes leads the entire pack with 53 points here, and then for the Wild, it's Suter with 48. Let's talk about the forwards. Goal-wise, the edge is obviously Vancouver's, and you're talking about a 26-goal spread here. Miller and Pettersson lead the way with 27 for Vancouver. Parise for the Wild with 25 goals. Point-wise, obviously Vancouver also leads the way in this category with, I want to say, a 44-point spread over Minnesota. Miller has the most for Vancouver with 72. Fiala for the Wild with 54. I mean, that's good on Fiala and everything, and that's a bounce-back season for him. But your leading point score, 54 points, yikes. So there's that. Now, let's talk about who has the edge in each of these positions, which I'll include coaching as well. Starting with the goaltending, I give a slight edge to Vancouver here because Markstrom is having such a great year until he got injured. But he has no playoff experience, right? Which is why there's only a slight advantage here for the Canucks. Statluck and Dubnyk have seen the show before. Now, when it comes to defense, no doubt you got to give the edge to Minnesota here. Yeah, Hughes leads everyone on both teams in points, but the Wild have a much more balanced unit. Forwards, this is easily the Canucks side of things. There's no competition here. Special teams, of course, the numbers says it's all Vancouver. And when it comes to coaching, I'm going to give interim coach Dean Evason a slight edge here. He's been in the league much longer, albeit as an assistant coach, but he's at least seen the playoffs with the Washington Capitals as well as the Minnesota Wild. He's been behind the bench with Boudreau for a very long time. He's also been a head coach in the AHL for a while as well, not to mention the Canadian Hockey League. Now, when it comes to the keys to the series for each of these teams, we'll start with the Canucks. Will Markstrom pick up where they left off? That's the biggest question, right? Next, Vancouver needs a better defensive effort from their forwards. I mean, if you compare the plus-minus between the two teams, Vancouver's a -30 and Minnesota's a -4. Yeah, that's an issue. Next, I have Besser needs to find that lethal shot again. Where is it? You know, he's kind of quietly disappearing this year, and that's a problem. So hopefully, you know, he's noticeable out there. Then I want to talk about the bottom six. They've got to contribute in some form or fashion. Now, Vancouver has at least two really good scoring lines, and you could say they have 2.5. But if Ferland, if he could, maybe he's back from his concussion, that would really help things. And lastly here for Vancouver, this is Green's first time coaching in the playoffs, in the NHL playoffs anyways, so I'm very curious to see how these two coaches go head-to-head between him and Dean Evason. Now, let's talk about the Wild and their keys to the series. Who's the goalie? We don't even know who the goalie is. Is it Statluck or is it obviously Devanik, even though he's had much poor numbers? Then Minnesota probably has to play tight, boring hockey in order to win some of these games. They're going to be close games. That's no surprise to anyone. Next, I have here Stahl and Zuccarello have kind of had an off year. They really need to pick up their game offensively, especially as well. Then there's Galchenyuk. This is a huge opportunity for him here. He's a UFA at the end of the season, so he's got to be noticeable out on the ice and in a positive manner too, obviously. And next, because Minnesota is last in the league in hitting, which I never would have thought, they can't be pushovers in the playoffs. And then let's talk about Eriksson Ek here. He needs to chip in offensively, doesn't he? He's good on the defensive side of things, but he needs to up his game in the playoffs as well. And yeah, there you have it. I would love to hear from you Wild and Canuck fans on who you think has the edge in the comment section down below. Please let me know. And yeah, there you have it. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Once again, happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. And please remember, be kind to each other. Thanks again. And I don't know where my marker went, so get my lint brush. I'll see you soon.